Okay, so today we're joined by Lawrence Naested, an experienced technology and transformation leader whose 6-year tenure at Collinson has seen him drive product, engineering, delivery, data management across the insurance business. So Lawrence serves as both the Chief Technology Officer and the Head of Transformation, and he's applied his extensive background from the likes of American Express and other high-profile companies. And really for this reason, I'm personally and genuinely looking forward to spending some time with Lawrence and having him on the series. So Lawrence, welcome. Maybe a good starting point just to have your own take on kind of the products and services that Collinson deliver and what they do.
Yeah, great. And it's great to be here and chatting to you. I know we've been talking to each other over a number of years across a number of different industries and different sort of technology solutions as well. So it's great to have the chance to talk a little bit more today. So as you mentioned, I've been with Collinson for 6 years. Collinson's a really interesting company. It's a privately owned family company, been in existence for well over 30 years now. And has a number of different operating companies. You mentioned the insurance company, and we'll certainly come back and talk a lot more about that very specifically. But a lot of people may know Collinson a little bit more through its Priority Pass brand, which is a lounge membership program historically, but now actually has a whole bunch of other services associated with that. And that's part of one of our operating companies. Also, where we look at loyalty and loyalty programs. We also build and operate lounges, some for ourselves across the world, and also then for other partners and clients as well. And we also run a loyalty commerce company called Value Dynamics, and which is very much focused on offer management, looking at how we sort of build affiliate networks. We support a variety of clients associated with that. And then finally, the insurance company, which I'm sure we're going to talk a lot more about today. Collinson's a group very much global, based in the UK, with about 2,000 employees. Our insurance business is around about 450 people, and we operate primarily in the UK and sort of Europe from a regulatory perspective. But we also have some of our products that work globally, working with a variety of different partners. Primarily, we're a capacity provider and a claims and assistance provider, working in the travel insurance space, in the dental and international private medical space. And also then we have a variety of other sort of ancillary products that sit within a line of business for us called multi-lines, such as gadget insurance, motor breakdown, home emergency, etc., where we work with a variety of different distributors and partners.
Good. And I suppose actually interesting, outside of kind of the traditional insurance space, most people have probably touched your business in one way or another if they've ever gone into an airport lounge. So it's kind of one of those,
yes, indeed.
Yeah, using Collinson without actually necessarily kind of knowing the behind the scenes.
Yes, and I think particularly in the insurance space, with one exception, which is our Columbus direct travel insurance brand, we work very much sort of B2B2C, working with a variety of distributors and affiliate partners across the UK and across Europe as well.
And I suppose, actually, given your CCO role, this is probably quite an applicable question, but I mean, how do you take technology and AI or non-AI? We can kind of get onto the AI bits later, but actually, how do you look at applying technology generally to the way in which you provide products and services?
So I think it's been a journey that we've been on probably for the last 5 years. Originally, we sort of grew through acquisition, and we had a number of different brands. We've been broker, we've been MGA, we've been affiliate partner, and more latterly, our focus has been very much on being a capacity provider and insurer. And I think what you need to provide from a technology perspective really depends upon the role you're playing in the market. And I think for us, moving to becoming an insurer first model and understanding what we need to try and support our partners has actually been really very critical for our technology strategy. So we've looked very hard at how we are bringing the right tools in place for us to be successful in providing claims and assistance services, which is where we're looking at our transformation activities operationally, but also then what we're doing as an underwriter, what we're doing as actuaries, what we're doing as finance people, for example, to be able to support our partners and be able to bring successful products to our partners and also be successful in the marketplace as well. So that really did see a change in our technology strategy about 4 or 5 years ago, where we were historically running with a variety of different platforms that we're really trying to be sort of all things to all people. And what we've now done is to really narrow our focus specifically on what we need to do to be a service company for claims and assistance and what we need to do to be a successful insurer. And that's really meant that we've focused very much on our operational activities in one area and how we do successful servicing. I'm sure we'll come on and talk a lot more about claims and assistance, particularly, and assistance for us in the travel insurance space is a particular aspect that requires a very strong network and working very closely to make sure we're delivering the right service at the time of need. But also then looking at how we manage data, particularly as an insurer, data is critical to make sure we're remaining profitable, we're understanding where we are in terms of our reserving, our overall loss position, and how we're managing risk across the organization.
And so I suppose one of the things always to consider is with I call it the advent in technology, or maybe the ease of access to AI. I think the experience, the expectation of the general populous user now actually has maybe kind of a newfound trust or an appreciation or even an expectation of, actually, I can do these things in my day life, so I must now be able to do these when working with an insurance organization. So
yeah,
with the kind of shift that we've seen in the last couple of years, how are you seeing that translate to what your customers are expecting of you?
So I think AI is nothing new. You've mentioned my background a little bit as well. I was working on different AI solutions 10 plus years ago. I think what's changed more recently is with the advent of large language models and generative AI, particularly with things such as ChatGPT, is where it's sort of gained the involvement of the general public a lot more. AI has been there in the background quite a lot over many, many years. Many companies have used it very successfully, particularly from a marketing perspective and campaign management. But also, I think in terms of data analytics, and particularly in the risk space as well, it's been used quite extensively in the past. I think now the expectation customer-wise is a quick turnaround, right? Digital, pervasive across everything, that every touch point, right? People just expect things to work now, and they expect to be able to be multi-channeled as well, right? So whether that's chat, that's voice, whether it's online, and you really need to be able to handle all of those things. Now, operationally, that could be very, very expensive, right? So if you're having to manage multiple channels across all of your different operations, and we provide support from a claims assistance perspective for many different partners, and each of those products may be slightly different. The demographic of the claimant or the policyholder may actually be very different as well, and each of those will have a preferred way of interacting with us, and some of them obviously will be vulnerable or need additional support as well. So we need to make sure that we can really cater for all of those things. To be able to do that with people at every single touch point is clearly very, very expensive. So this is where additional digital solutions, AI, can provide a lot of support to us. It can really help streamline our operations, but also provide us a lot more insights that we probably never had before in the same way. But I think the key thing is that people just expect these things now. Right?
Yeah.
And everybody now is a video user of some sort, right? I think the COVID pandemic sort of moved everybody online a lot more. People became used to working at home, right? People set up their home offices like you and me now, right?
Yeah.
Set up their home offices to be able to support themselves working from home, and it's just carried on. And now people have that expectation. So I think it's not necessarily AI that people have an expectation about. I think it's that people just have expectations that they're going to get service across multiple channels digitally in a very, very quick way.
An expectation of the experience, the outcome that it
Correct.
delivers. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely, right. And
And
and and I suppose behind that, they're probably anticipating that people are using AI, right? And particularly if they've been out using ChatGPT, they're probably asking why we're not out using generative AI, whether it's ChatGPT or Copilot or something else potentially, right? And they probably expect us to be doing that without necessarily understanding some of the uh, data privacy aspects, the reliability aspects associated with it, the legal aspects, let alone what the regulator expects us to be doing as well, because they've used it chatting with their friends or doing some shopping or something, and they therefore expect us to be able to have those things. And I think that's probably some of the challenge that we've got ahead of us.
yeah, and actually, so you're the first CTO that we've had on the series, and actually, I think your field of view and your considerations are probably going to be quite different to maybe someone that's just focused on potentially customer experience, because
Yes.
actually the not that the risk just sits with you, but the
Mm,
consideration of risk needs to kind of
mm,
be a factor. So you've mentioned kind of data privacy and things like that.
mm.
So maybe what are some of the considerations you go through when looking at adopting newer technologies, and actually how they can benefit, but actually what are the associated potential risks for Collinson as a business?
So inevitably we've got to make sure there's a business case, right? Now that business case may not always be pure financial, but clearly we need to make sure we're looking after the company's money as well. But inevitably we need to make sure that we're seeing improvements, definitely with our customer journeys,
Hmm.
but also we're seeing improvements in terms of what we can do for our own operations internally, right? So that could be in terms of better insights from the data that we're getting. So that could be how we support our underwriters when they're looking at our overall reserving position. It could be supporting our underwriters as they look at product performance, right? It could be when we're looking at things such as claims frequency, when we're looking at claims severity in terms of the value of the claims that we're getting that are coming through. And one of the things that's been very interesting for us, particularly post-COVID, is that travel business has gone through, initially a complete lockdown, then a sort of measured release, and then a full release. So and then things are sort of settling back to what could be a new normal for us in the travel space. So actually trying to predict that, travel insurance, particularly across Europe and the UK, is very seasonal.
Hmm.
So, as you look at those seasons, it's affected by the Olympics, for example, in Paris, right? Do people travel more or travel less? So actually trying to get those insights and look for that, I suppose, sort of secret source in a way, or insights that we've never been able to get to historically. There's lots of value in that, and that value may be in terms of operations. It may be in terms of how quickly we can get information, but it also may be in terms of really data mining. I think from an AI perspective, it's probably called something a little bit more sophisticated in terms of sort
Probably
of
got a genetic somewhere in
it's
there as
probably got
well.
sort of, it's more sort of deep learning, I suppose, right? And really starting to use, some things like machine learning capabilities
Hmm.
to try and drive out those insights. And I think the value that we get operationally is probably outweighed quite substantially by the better insights we're going to get, right? And that hopefully leads to us having better performance as a business, but also means that we're probably providing better products in the market, right? And clearly fair value is critical in the industry. We know that. And we need to make sure we're continuing to evidence that in the products we bring to market with our partners. But having the data to try and support that, having the data to be able to prove it and provide those insights is really very valuable for us. So I think that's really where a lot of our focus is going to be in the future, alongside the customer experience side. yes, we are looking at, the quotation process, the purchase process, and working with partners associated with that. But for us, our customer experience is also very much around the claims and assistance activities. It's quite interesting. We took one of our core processes, which is a claims submission journey, and we thought, well, okay, let's use AI to determine what AI we should use. So we actually asked ChatGPT to suggest where we could leverage artificial intelligence across a claims journey.
Yeah.
Because we thought, well, okay, let's see what best practice looks like, right? Let's understand where the market's at, right? And obviously from your business as well, you know a lot about customer interaction, right? And how that works. But there are definitely a number of areas that we already had on our radar, which was good. So, for example, the ability to submit claims online, the ability to do some degree of automated decisioning around those claims based upon the information that's been submitted. But then you start to look at more things such as document verification, right? And that's really where you're then starting to see AI come in very quickly, both from a traditional sort of OCR background, but also then in terms of looking at things from a fraud perspective. But also then you can start to look at it for how you do settlement, right? And how you optimize your settlement process. There may be some compliance angles you look at associated with sort of KYC and AML angles. So you can start to think about different ways where you can augment the process. Yes, you've still got to think about how do you streamline your process. You've got to think about how do you make sure it's really strong from a customer experience perspective. But you can then start to augment that process with different tooling, and particularly with the use of AI in certain spaces. And that was, it was both illuminating and also confirming, I suppose, that a lot of things that we've traditionally focused on are still relevant, albeit that you can now leverage other tools to try and support that.
And other than asking AI, where should we start? How does the kind of the general ideation of where perhaps your initiative should be focused on? Is it kind of more of a board level, we should be focused on this as a business and make it happen, or is it more departmental led around actually we're seeing these trends, we may have this data that is reinforcing that this should be a focus area? How does that prioritization happen across the business?
It's a very, very good question and very, very topical. The reality is it's all of the above, right? So for other people in other organizations who are in a similar role to me, it's actually one of the challenges, right? Because everybody appears to be an expert at this, right? So you've got the board agenda, which is very much about, okay, what are we doing from a regulatory perspective? How do we stay competitive in the market? Our competitors are using these tools. We're all familiar with the Lemonade example that came out a year or so back, where they could sort of automatically decision and pay something within seconds, right? The reality is that we can automatically decision and pay things within seconds if we wanted to do that, right? But actually, that may not be necessarily the right thing to do, because you want to make sure that you've got the right checks and balances in place, and you've gone through your fraud steps. So just because you can do something doesn't necessarily mean to say you want to do it, right? And this is where the prioritization activity, I think, is essential not only from a board and company and technology strategy perspective, but it's just in terms of prioritization and sequencing across anything you do. So I think the fact that we're looking at AI, particularly in what the AI agenda is no different from any other sort of digital or technology strategy, right? You've still got to make sure you've got that business case, you've got the reasons for doing it. What we've done as a team is actually done a sort of market review. We completed a market review and looked at areas where AI could help. We've also looked at what's going on outside of the insurance industry. and where AI has helped other organizations. We've looked at what our partners are doing. We work very closely with AWS, for example, or Microsoft, but also with other partners as well. And where they're at, what they're suggesting, what they're seeing as well. And then we've run a number of workshops to really look at the marketplace, the external landscape, and then sought to determine where we thought the initial early value was going to be for us, and then really laid out a bit of a roadmap as to where we were going to go. What that's allowed us to do is sort of bring everybody to bring out their understanding, their experiences, what they heard at the various conferences or trade shows they've been to, and there's a lot of that out there at the moment, what they've read about in the different sort of trade journals and different blogs and things as well. And really to lay all of that out and to sort of really look at where we felt the biggest opportunity was, but also really relevant for our company, right? So given that we are not always spending time looking at the quote and buy process, right? And usually that's working with our partners. We certainly want to try and support them. But for us, it may be much more around, as I said, in terms of data and data insights. So we've gone through and we've actually created that strategy, and we've looked at where we're going to focus first. And while we're not ignoring other areas and other opportunities, and of course everybody wants it yesterday and they want it faster, but it's then allowed us to look at that alongside all of the other priorities and the other technology investments or other change activities we've got going on across the organization. A key one for us, as for many other companies working across Europe, for example, is DORA, right? So Digital Operational Resilience Act. Much of the compliance angles associated with that we already had in place, but certainly that's an area where we need to make sure we're understanding how we are digitally resilient, but also then how we're doing that alongside what we're doing for new capabilities, what we're doing alongside of AI. So, I think that it was very beneficial for us to go through a broad session to debate the market overall, to debate what people were seeing and where they felt the benefits were, and then for us collectively as an executive team to try and pull together what we thought our company priorities were going to be in this space.
Interesting. So actually, one of my questions was going to be around actually some recommended best practices, because I think actually because there is so much, I mean, some of it's opportunity, some of it's probably false opportunity. As you mentioned,
Yes.
someone probably goes to a conference and thinks that's a really good idea, but
Yes.
maybe there's not the business value that sits behind that. So I think that ability to pool ideas and have people share why they think something should be a level of focus, but then actually validate the value to the Collinson business and your customers and your partners, and then almost as an organization, as an executive team, getting behind that roadmap. Because I think part of the problem, and I've kind of seen this myself, is maybe you start doing something and then you get derailed by the next shiny idea, and actually you're then in this kind of never-ending cycle of change, and you don't get the transformational benefit off the back of it.
Correct, and there's inevitably there's a lot of hype, right? There's a lot of things, and there's so much press on this right now that everything looks like it's an opportunity. So this wasn't going to go away. So the best thing for us to do was to try and run a bit of a session with a number of people involved from lots of different functions, different parts of our business, and really look at what we thought the landscape was, and to really, I suppose, bring out what the opportunities were. That allowed us, I think, to settle on where we felt the immediate benefits were going to be for us. It doesn't mean that we're not considering other things longer term, but also then it's actually, how does this fit alongside our broader business strategy and what we're trying to achieve? Because there is definitely the chance to get well distracted by these initiatives, right? And to be really chasing the latest or greatest thing that seems to be out there, and we've tried to resist that, not because we want to get left behind, certainly not, but we've tried to resist that and make sure it's really consistent with our broader business strategy, right? We've got to put these things in context. Yeah. Now, there are areas where we're certainly continuing to test and learn. There are areas, I mentioned Microsoft Copilot, right? Many companies are using Office 365 as a stack to support them. Other companies may use other tools as well. So we've been piloting using Microsoft Copilot, just for our general support across 365 applications, and we found that has provided some advantages, but it's also then help people understand where the limitations are and what else they need to do as well. So we're certainly not considering other things and other piloting opportunities, but what we have got is a very clear understanding of where we think the initial benefits for us are going to be from an AI perspective. And for us, it's I've talked a lot about data, but in our claims and assistance space, I think fraud is definitely one area that we're seeing AI play a big part to support us in terms of fraud detection and in terms of fraud analysis. Now, again, we've got people heavily involved in that, so we're not letting AI do it all, but definitely AI has a big part to play, I think, in helping fraud. Now, those who are doing motor insurance, for example, have probably been using some of those things for dent analysis or sort of those, or sort of for looking at accident damage and those types of things. But there's a lot of other areas as well, I think, where we can see beyond just the document verification. We can start to detect trends. We can start to understand behaviors around fraud. So that's our first area. A lot of work that we're doing on that right now, again, alongside a lot of our operational activities. The other area, I think, which is an opportunity that, this is not necessarily new, but AI is really helping accelerate it, is what historically we've called sentiment analysis, right? So, sentiment analysis has been used from a sort of marketing behavior perspective for a number of years. But I think for us, it's also then in terms of detecting really the needs of our customers, our policyholders, making sure we can respond to those really quickly. And that goes all the way from supporting vulnerable customers all the way through to complaints management, but even more broadly in terms of how we're best supporting people and how we can make sure we're identifying people's needs really, really quickly. Now, that's essential with our assistance business, our medical assistance activities as well, where we may be dealing with family members who in some cases are really in very difficult circumstances, perhaps miles away from home, and how we can support them most effectively. So I think there's a lot of things there where, as I said earlier, AI is not necessarily replacing, but it's helping augment and support things that we already do and things that we're already thinking about how we can be better on.
Yeah, I mean, I think any ultimate successful outcome solution is going to be a tapestry of different capabilities, and it's about making sure you plug it into the right place, and don't just solely rely on it. I think your analogy of almost augmenting people and making them better, faster, more productive, and specifically, as you mentioned a couple of times in the medical space, I think that is where you need that human touch point.
So a great example of that is, and it's not something we've deployed fully yet, but it's certainly something we're looking at taking further, is for medical assistance activities, we may receive medical reports for people who are in a hospital, on their holiday somewhere elsewhere in the world, and we may get that medical report through, and it may be 20 or 30 pages, okay, and we need to be able to assess that very quickly, understand it, and it may well be written in a variety of different languages, and then to be able to summarize what actions we need to take. Now, we've got very experienced doctors, nurses, and medical staff within our organization, who certainly can do that. But reading a 20, 30-page document takes time.
Yeah.
So there's ways that we can actually use tools with AI to help summarize that for us, which doesn't replace the expertise of our people, but it certainly helps them become more effective more quickly, and very quickly then be able to look at what actions we need to take for that medical assistance case. So that's a
And I suppose
great example, I think, of where it's really augmenting and supporting us, providing a better service to our customer at the end of the day.
yeah, and especially if they're in those time-sensitive situations
Yes,
as well.
yes. And some of those are life and death, right? They really are, very, very sensitive, time critical moments where we need to be able to understand what support we can provide to somebody at their time of need.
Good. So my final question I've been asking people, and you've maybe slightly touched upon it with the how do you get the different parts of the business and the stakeholders together? But I think in this, dare we say, sometimes chaotic world of new shiny things, if you would be able to kind of go back a year or so, or a few years to the Collinson business and go, actually, these are some learnings I'd like to impart and to make Collinson as a business more effective. I mean, what would some of those learnings be to help you grapple with the various challenges and changes that AI is bringing the industry?
So I'm very mindful that hindsight's sort of perfect science, right? So I want to sort of provide that sort of health warning and big caveat up front, and also it's a multi-phase game as well. So you sort of need to be able to go through and look at how you rationalize your platforms before you can then think about how do you leverage your sort of new position. So I think data is probably the area I would have liked to have spent more time, particularly looking at advanced tooling, and to really build the insights in from the ground up. Right now, we've done a lot of work, particularly in the data space, over the last 2 to 3 years, to try and bring our data together much more substantially than we've ever done before, and that goes hand in hand with us making sure that we're a successful capacity provider and insurer first. But also, I think there's the tooling in this space really has accelerated very, very quickly. And if I knew that tooling was going to be available when we started on the journey, sort of, let's say 4 years ago, we probably would have gone maybe a little bit slower up front, and then taken advantage of that tooling, particularly in the insight space, to look at trend analysis, to look at data mining opportunities, etc. So I think that's an area definitely where I think in other industries, I'm sure it's significantly advanced. I think risk areas, particularly that are beyond sort of our portfolio of products from an insurer perspective. But from my work in the sort of credit card and financial services industry, there's a lot of companies that are doing that already. But I think there's an area that certainly we would have spent a bit more time on. I think more broadly, it's about, like any new set of technologies, it's about being clear about what your business strategies are, what your business drivers are, what your business advantages are, and where you can drive value. Making sure you've got a technology strategy that supports that, and then checking in and revisiting that strategy on a regular basis to make sure that you've remained flexible, you're responsive to the market, but you're not blinded by the market and chasing after shiny things all the time. So and it's a careful balance, right? Because the owners of the company and the customers that you serve are obviously expecting more all the time, and rightly so. But you need to make sure that you're also being clear about how you deliver that business value.
Sound advice. Well, Lawrence, genuinely again, thanks for your time. Really good conversation, and I'm sure lots of other people will benefit from your sharing. So thank you.
Yeah, and thanks, Danny, for inviting us to this session. I think it will be really interesting to see how the market continues to develop on this. I think it's the beginning of a bit of a new phase of activity for sure. I won't say an era because I think we're more in the augmentation space than anything else. So I'd be very interesting to see the response you get, but also how other companies in the market are progressing with these areas. And I think in these situations, it's actually much more about how do we share best practice. I don't think anybody's necessarily got the single answer to this. So I certainly look forward to hearing more about other updates that you do in the marketplace. So thank you for inviting me.
Right, thank you. Right, bye.